Hey, what's going on everybody? Mallet here, and we're taking a look at a second gaming headset today. Yes, this is another one from Razer. A couple of friends asked me to compare this one to the Thresher that we took a look before, so let's jump into it. Let me take this out of my head. First, let's talk about price, because budget. And this thing usually goes for about 99 bucks, well, 100 bucks before taxes. There are other versions of the Razer Kraken family, including the 7.1 V2 that don't have the oval ear pads, that go for 79 bucks. There are a couple of them that sometimes you can find for around 50, but these ones are 100 bucks a piece. And I know you guys are looking at the ear cups and thinking about the mesh. Well, this grill is just cosmetic. This is sort of Razer's signature when building headphones, because these are a closed back pair. And unlike the Thresher, these actually have a very narrow soundstage. Most of what you listen to with these is definitely here. There isn't that much separation, the imaging is not that clear, everything seems to be a bit on top of each other. If you turn on the 7.1 option within the Razer software though, things got a little wider, it gets a little bit of room to breathe. It's fake soundstage, yes, but it's better than using them stereo anyway. Now, on the topic of power and impedance, it kind of doesn't matter because it is a wired pair of headphones, but the connection is USB. That's what actually powers everything, including the LEDs with chroma lighting on the ear cups. And you don't really need to worry about that. You plug into almost anything USB and they're gonna run just fine. And now that we mentioned the chroma lighting, let's just take a look at the build real quickly. We already talked about it being a closed back pair with this grill mesh, and the build is actually mostly plastic. There's a little bit of a mesh with some padding on the headband. The ear cups are ridiculously fluffy and they are super wide, so this thing is going to sit around your ears really comfortably. You're definitely not going to complain there. The overall headset, it's not extremely light, but it's definitely not as heavy as the Thresher, which was already not that heavy. So long hours gaming with this thing on top of your head, yeah, you're good. On the left side, you also have the microphone, which is retractable so that you can, pull it off, get it the way you want it. It's going to stay there. And when you're done, just tuck it back in. And just like the Thresher, one thing that's kind of a testament to how well built these are, despite the choices of materials, I'm not going to go into that, is the fact that when you brush up against the cord or the headband or even the ear cups themselves while you're listening to something, there is very little interference, which is a plus. Now for number 5, last but not least, you have sound. And in this case, we need to take a look at two different sounds. First, the ones you're going to listen to coming from the ear cups, and second, the one everybody else is going to listen to coming from your microphone. So actually, let's start with that one. Alright, now you guys are listening to the Kraken V2 7.1 Mercury Edition. And as you guys can see, the microphone is actually pretty good. It's not as boomy as the Thresher that we saw before, and it's way clearer than what I would expect. I actually think I like this one a little bit better than the V-Moda Boom Pro. The voice is actually a little bit more pronounced, and this is with the recording without any of the settings for voice improvement and noise cancellation and environmental noise reduction that the software has. All that stuff is turned off. Oh, and the windows are open right by my side so that you guys can listen to a little bit of the environmental noise that's going to bleed in as you're speaking. But you do have the option to activate mic noise cancellation and ambient noise reduction. The problem is what happens if you do. This is what it sounds like with just the mic noise cancellation on. You can feel that something was stripped away in the clarity on the quality of the microphone. It does pick up less noise, but it doesn't sound as good. And it gets even worse, in my opinion, if you turn on this thing. Oh, and by the way, turn your volume down about 20% just before I click this. 3, 2, 1. This is what it sounds like if you have both of them turned on. It tries too hard to strip away noise from the actual voice, and it turns out to be not such a pleasant experience. I much rather just use the default option because it sounds more inviting, more pleasant, and I'm quite impressed with the microphone on this thing. Okay, so this is how the Boom Pro sounds in comparison to the Kraken 7.1 V2. You can hear a little bit of a difference in the sense that the Kraken is actually a little easier, a little more clear when it comes to the voice. You guys have already heard the V-Moda Boom Pro before, so you know that its overall quality is really good. But the Kraken does a little bit of a better job with the clarity of it all. I'm actually a little torn. I wasn't expecting to like the Kraken V2's microphone as much as I did. Okay, you heard that, right? That's how the microphone in this thing sounds. This is the type of quality that I was expecting to hear from the microphone on the Thresher, and actually this is among the best microphones I've listened to coming from a headset like this. It's super clean, it's natural, open, inviting, and that really impressed me. But on the other hand, sound coming from the headphone portion of this headset kind of disappointed me. These are definitely not garbage, but they are miles from sounding as good as the Thresher does. They are way too boomy, the soundstage is way too narrow, everything feels overlapped. It's not that the bass is way too pronounced, it is very pronounced. My guess is that the aim is to make any explosions in your games feel like they're exploding inside your head. And it does that almost flawlessly, but a bit too much for my tastes. The problem is, when tuning this thing, everything else besides the bass feels like was left behind. They just left it there. They tuned the bass and didn't even bother about what it was doing to everything else. So the mids and the highs, they feel disjointed. The overall sound experience is clearly something that could be way better. And this is already taking into consideration the 7.1 factor. If you take that away, on top of all that, you get the even narrower soundstage that feels like you're constricted, you're suffocating inside of the headphones. There's a little trick though, that it's completely artificial and it's not going to solve anything, but you can actually, within the Razer software, toggle the microphone to kind of pass through a bit of the audio from itself into what you're listening, and you have a slider to adjust how much of that just passes through, so you can kind of simulate the open backness of the design of the headphone, but it just gives a little more room to breathe, but what you are listening to still feels like it's overlapped and constricted. Not to mention the fact that depending on what you're doing, it's gonna sound really weird. So to close it off, the Kraken V2 actually gets me two different approaches to asking something of Razer. But let's try something a little more directive. Razer, get the guys who did this microphone to work on everything else you're using microphone-wise across all your headsets, and get the guys who tuned the audio of the Thresher to take a look at all the other headphones, especially if they sound like this. Because if this thing sounded like the Thresher does, it would be such a compelling package to everyone, not only gamers or bass heads. It would be almost impossible to not recommend, as long as you guys keep the price at max at $100, preferably at $79 like some of the other stuff that you guys have. But there you have it. These are definitely not trash. They have some of the best microphones I've ever listened to coming from a headset. The build is awesome, it's super comfortable. They are a little heavy on the bass side, lacking a little bit on the mids and highs. But overall, it's just that it's got room for improvement. But hey, what doesn't? Well, hope you guys enjoyed the video, so like and subscribe if you did. Leave any comments or suggestions down below if you feel like it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.